IDF forces operated overnight in the West Bank, arresting 13 terror suspects and confiscating illegal weapons. It's the reality in the West Bank since the beginning of Operation Breaking the Waves exactly 1 year ago, one that could not have happened without the backbone of the Israel Defense Forces.
The IDF is able to execute Operation Breaking the Waves thanks to the help of its substantial and high-quality reserve force, along with regular army.
It's the same dynamic as any other Israeli military campaign, except for the timing. The event honoring the Breaking the Wave reservists on Sunday night took place as Israel is going through what is probably its worst internal division, caused by the opposition to the government's proposed judicial reforms, which have brought hundreds of thousands of Israelis to protest. It's a division that also reflects on the army and even more so on the reservists. The chief of staff is well aware this threat is far bigger than anything coming from across the border.
Due to the importance of our mission and the understanding of the threats, we come to serve. We do not refuse to come, and we do not choose our missions. As civilians, the reservists are allowed to express their opinion in any way the law allows them to. It's not easy, but it's the only possible way to go through these obstacles.
The chief of staff himself was on the spot over the weekend as he was quoted telling reservists that he would rather live in a stable dictatorship than in a shaky anarchy. Following the criticism, he tried to explain.
In my answer, I said we should always come to serve, and that I will remain in this country forever. I added a sentence which I should not have added, and that does not reflect my views. I want to use this opportunity to explain myself. The IDF will not be able to act in a torn society. The IDF will not be able to act without the spirit of the reserve forces.
It is unclear how this explanation will be received. What is clear is that the government's proposed controversial judicial reforms on one hand and the massive protests on the other are tearing the state apart. That includes the one body which made sure the state is still around despite all the threats.
Now, for more on this, we're joined in studio by defense correspondent Jonathan Regev. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Here's the big question. Every single military, and Israel's no exception, has their conscientious objectors. They're not going to serve, they're not going to do whatever it is that they're ordered to do for their personal reasons. But we've never seen it on a scale like this before, have we?
The Israeli army is the people's army. Anything happening in Israeli society is reflected in the army because it's the Israeli people making up this army, and not just the men serving nearly 3 years or the women serving 2 years. This goes on and on and on with the reserves. The Israeli society is torn apart. You can agree with the reform, you can agree with the protest, you have to agree with the fact that there's a wide division. And if there's a wide division in society, there's a wide division within the army. Israel cannot win a war without the reserves. Loud and clear. The regular army is strong, is good, is professional, but it's rather small. The Israeli tactic is that the regular army has to hold the lines for 48 hours. That's the time it takes for the reserves to come in, and then Israel advances. Without the reserves, or at least without a large number in the reserves, Israel cannot win a war. Simple as that.
And while we're seeing this in the reserves, and the reserves are a reflection of Israeli society for all those reasons that you mentioned, we should also see that exact same sort of reflection in the active duty regular armed forces. Do we see any hints of this disunion, this sort of fracturing happening in the regular forces?
Not yet, not at this time. And let's remember the regular army, eventually people come in and they serve for 3 years or 2 years for women, and politics are eventually outside. The reservists are people that are outside. They're already people that have jobs, have families, and of course have their own opinions. Some of them strongly support the reform. Some of them strongly oppose the judicial reform and participate in protests. Many of them are saying that it's the reservists who they're saying that a large group that supports the reforms come from the Orthodox community who does not serve. That a large bulk of the reservists actually come from the camp that oppose the reform, that go out and protest. Regardless of where the truth is, there's one truth which I think cannot be denied, and that is that the Israeli society is fragmented. fragmented, and that fragmentation is present in the army, especially in the reserve army. As for your question, not so much in the regular army, at least not for now, but in the reserves, it's there loud and clear.
And that fracturing has worked its way all the way up to the top levels of Israeli society and government. We've seen political leaders come out and trash talk the reserves, trash talk the soldiers, which even prompted the prime minister to step in and say, stop talking bad about the military. What is happening to the society where the military, the political leadership, and the people on the ground don't trust one another?
That's a very big problem. Eventually, I'm not going to say if Israel goes to war. Unfortunately, I'm going to say when Israel goes to war, because it happens here every few years. Israel will need its reservists, and then the reservists will say, why should I come and fight for a government that trashes me this way, that treats me this way, where senior ministers talk to me this way? Many of the reservists already feel that they are they're giving to the Israeli society much more than they receive, and they say, why should we, mostly the secular population, serve in the army, come to the reserves again and again, when a large bulk of the Israeli society coming from the Orthodox community, for example, they do not serve, but they're the ones running the government, they're the ones running the country. It's a division that existed already way before this reform for many, many years now. The reform backed by the Orthodox parties and the Orthodox community already enlarges this division, which existed way before.
It's definitely a divide in the status quo that cannot continue stably.
Absolutely.